Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. Electrifying!
Yes, guys, welcome back to a very, very jubilant set of boys and a very jubilant podcast, the Cannon Podcast, on this beautiful Tuesday, 2 days after spanking Spurs in the North London derby. We are here to talk to you lovely people. Thanks for joining us. If you're joining us on YouTube for the first time, make sure you like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. If you're on Spotify or Apple, make sure you give us a rating or a review, whatever it is. Rohan will be after you. If you don't, he will be after you. It did actually work last time. You prompted a lot of people, so make sure you do so. We are here to talk Arsenal. We're here to get into the weeds of what was a fantastic, fantastic weekend for the Gunners. I hope you are all still on cloud nine in a way that I am. I've been buzzing today. I've been just consuming everything. Absolutely everything. So let's consume some more. I'm here with George.
Hello, good sir.
And I'm here with Rohan. You're both wearing white.
But I've got a cheeky grey.
Still Spurs colours.
I could say it's for their funeral.
Yeah, don't work.
But it's not working.
I think we deleted them yesterday.
They have gone from the system. They've erased themselves. Yeah, look, unbelievable. Arsenal beating Spurs 4-1 in North London derby, as if you didn't know. We're going to talk the tactics. We're going to talk every aspect and every angle of that game that we can get into. But first, boys, let's just talk what it meant and how it felt, because we did the instant reaction, right, George? So I'll probably come to you first on this, Rohan. You couldn't make it, but I do want to start, because we didn't talk about this enough yesterday, George. That atmosphere was amazing, and we've spent a lot of time over the last couple of years talking about, always the atmosphere, good enough and whatever. I think often the conversation we've had is about, it's about expectation. And ultimately, when you raise expectations, and in your favourite season, 22-23, expectations versus reality were very different. And then it rose. And then things start to, I think it starts to catch up. We think we should be where we are, and we're further, if we don't win the league or whatever happens, it's felt like a disappointment. But that Henri quote yesterday, I think, sums it up. It's no longer a process. It's happening. It's happening, mate.
It is, and it's absolutely lovely. So good. Like, I can't wait. Can't wait for May, because I've never believed as much as what I believe now. Like, I've always believed, right? But now, we're too good.
Where are you? A friend of mine asked me this question earlier. Where are you in terms of percentage of security that we're winning the Premier League right now?
90%.
George?
Yeah, I would say about 90%. Yeah.
And I think that's the highest. It's certainly the highest I've ever been. I think even higher than I felt we were winning the league after the Newcastle game, but it's right now it's the highest I've ever been. Not the drugs. On this. And yeah, Rohan, you weren't there, but talk to us about your experience of that game, because it was superb.
Just to go back on the 90%, listen, football's a crazy game, right? And things can happen and whatnot. And, when we did the pods last season, it was always about injuries. And I feel like the injuries now, in terms of how we didn't have the options available to maintain the dynamics, is showing this season, really, isn't it? Like, what's really changed? There's all this talk about what's changed under Mikel. Yes, there have been things that we will highlight and we've already spoken about, but that's driven by the personnel and the players that we have now. Like, the manager is still the same manager. Yes, he learns, but I can assure you, this team is coached brilliantly. And like yesterday, it's always been really dominant between Arsenal and Tottenham at the Emirates. I mean, the last time they won there in the league, I don't know if you remember it, but it was Jonas Kabul. Yeah. I remember I came back from my swimming lesson. We were 2-0 up. I think it was Nasri and Shamak, and then, it just went absolutely pear-shaped after that. But like, I was nervous, always nervous for a game of that magnitude. But after the first couple of minutes, I thought, this is nice and chilled. It's the easiest North London derby I think I've ever watched Arsenal compete in. Maybe barring 21, 22. the 3-0 with the Aubameyang and Smith Rowe and Saka, that was really easy as well against Nuno. But that performance was crazy. And I think you set the tone, usually with, the first tackle, like a cruncher. I remember back in that season, it was Ben White on Son. Like 1 minute in, bang, cruncher, and we're on our bike. This time it was what happened in the stands, that tifo. Yeah. I really do think that made a massive difference, because when I heard about the tifo, I thought, okay, I was there for the PSG game, and I looked to my left and thought, what the heck is that? I've seen Dortmund, I've seen you see in teams like Slavia Prague and, all teams like Newcastle as well, Man City, they've had bare tifos and that. So I thought, hopefully they don't let us down. And it delivered. And I love the players that they had in it as well. There's a meaning with each player. And I felt that set the tone. And the only thing I'm a bit annoyed about is the fact that I wasn't there. Apart from that. So happy.
Incredible. Yeah, you said it there, sort of one of the easiest North London derbies I can remember. I think certainly from a jeopardy perspective, I mean, Spurs created the least XG they have ever created on record, according to XG philosophy. From a jeopardy perspective, there was absolutely nothing in that sense. And we're going to talk about Thomas Frank later. Quite why you set up to basically go for set pieces and corners with no way of getting set pieces and corners is a marvel to me. But George, I think Rohan's right. I think it's a good place to kind of get into this. The atmosphere was incredible. And I think that's been it has been a thing. You can absolutely levy at Arsenal for many, many years, whether it's the Emirates being a library or whatever. And it has been something that from day one, Mikel Arteta has commented on. I mean, literally in his first press conference, in his first interview, he's talking about the energy and reconnecting people. And we talk tactics and stuff, but mate, we were winning it from when that moment that tifo came up, the moment those fireworks were going out. I was looking at those Spurs players and thinking, not that they're not even up for it, but they just won't be able to match this in the same way. We use this reference all the time, but it is the Anfield effect. It is it's the Emirates effect at this point, that there is something about this team, this club, this group of fans right now, especially in this moment, because of the expectation versus reality. We're matching the expectation and probably going beyond it in terms of the dominance of what we're doing. And so the stadium is absolutely electric. And I think it was a massive part in his winning. And I have to credit the club for what they did in terms of the investment into the tifo, in terms of the investment into the pre-match video and doing all that stuff, because it does make a difference. But it starts on day one in 2019, Mikel Arteta saying, this is what we need to do. And this is the fruits of, many people's labour, but massively his.
Yeah, and I think the tifo is just an example of that emotional connection improving. I mean, we go last year, I did mention on the IR, but you go back to the PSG debacle in terms of what people felt the tifo represented and whether or not it represented the teams and whether or not we did enough there. There was a desire for us to do more and create a bigger atmosphere. And I think a lot of people were upset. I know it didn't affect me. I wasn't there, but trying to take a temperature of the fan base, they felt there was an opportunity lost in terms of our ability to exert that influence. And it's just, that's what Mikel is. And that's what has been the definition of his journey, maximizing margins, whether that means creating a trophy that needs to light up when you do actually win it, whether it means redesigning the dressing room, whether it means redesigning the tunnel, whether it means upgrading the tifo. There has been a constant search to maximize margins, and to the point that we've now become a set piece team only, apparently. But it's all in the pursuit of margins, isn't it? Ultimately, and he's never been, or rather, he's always been humble enough to seek the margin. And that's something that you can criticize Mikel for a lot, but his ability to search for those things and the connection to people has been, I think, a uniquely Mikel thing that we've seen. We've talked about in other ways where players have felt almost a connection to Mikel in signing him. He's been very good about understanding human connection. And sometimes we as fans and even podcasters and commentators of the sport, we undersell the importance of just a human kind of emotion to feel as though they're living our dream, right? And I think it's very easy to get up for something like a derby and for a top six performance, but to feel that your team is representing you almost get a sense of accomplishment that, your life could be going a certain type of way, but a successful sport team it helps people more than I think people realize. And so this connection build wasn't a given. And I think that just because we're successful, it doesn't contribute to a good atmosphere. There has to be a level of us feeling like that is our team. And, I think that there's a lot of people, and I'll just speak for myself now, to feel proud of your team is a different level to being successful of your team. Those aren't always mutually exclusive things, how you win is a factor. How you feel about your team and the players, do they represent you a lot? Like, I look at this team, not only are they talented, but they're the type of men I want representing my club as well. And it all comes into it. It all is a factor in pulling in this feeling of not just the 90%, but of being proud. And that's the journey that we talk about, not just the destination of winning the game, of winning a trophy. When all those things contribute, you start to feel a sense of accomplishment, that your dreams are being fulfilled in a very different type of way. And it extends beyond banter. And I think that's what's unifying everybody in this type of game.
I like this group. And it's not just about their football. It's whenever I see them interviewed, I see them speaking, I hear them talking about the club or whatever it might be. I just think, it is a cliche, but you think, I could hang out with you guys. Like, you seem nice. And it's an important thing. And I think it's a big thing of why we are all so proud. I also think a big offshoot of that, one of the many, many things of having such a great culture that helps, is for people like Pierre Nketiah. If you're that sort of person, you're coming into it, you need only hold on to the boat because it's going one direction. And if you can hold on to the boat, as he absolutely can, let's be clear, not half the job's done, of course not, but you're coming into an environment which is healthy, which is supportive, where, yes, there's big expectations, but there's big expectations because you can do it. And I think it means that he comes in and a certain type of person walks into an environment like that and goes, oh, this is too much. Another person goes, look at all this success, let me be a part of it. And I think we filled this team with players like that who go, oh, I see a Declan Rice, I see a, Bukayo Saka, I see a William Saliba, and I want to be a part of that. I want to be on the level with those guys. And I think we have a group full of those players, and credit to Mikel for picking that. The game itself, even if it was won from the Tifo, was brilliant. And in terms of the numbers, we can look through 2 expected goals to 0.1, 17 shots to 3. I would say probably, here we are, 37 deep touches to 7 from Spurs, 5.1 expected threat created to 0.1. Rohan, it was a demolition, and a demolition that I didn't expect to come against a Thomas Frank team. And we had a little exchange yesterday, right? Like, I really, really rate Thomas Frank. He's in a bad moment. And he didn't get it right. And I think eventually public opinion will change. And I think he's a brilliant manager. But he got it really wrong. He got it really, really wrong. And I think my main takeaway is, yes, the lack of fight, the lack of progression, the lack of patterns through themselves. Before we talk about us, because we were brilliant, we should say Spurs were bad. I mean, we made them look bad, but they were bad. As I said earlier, when you play for set pieces and corners and you have no reliable way of getting them, it's poor.
Really bad. We had a friendly exchange. We had, and
So what you're saying is,
I think with Thomas Frank, I really like Thomas Frank. I think he's a top coach. But I've always felt, and it remains to be seen, right? I feel like with his teams, well, with Tottenham and where Thomas Frank is now, the mindset has to change from being more underdog in big games at Brentford to now more protagonists. That's something that he needs to be able to implement, not just in the big games, but also in the games against less opposition. So far, I've watched a lot of Tottenham this season. Like against Bournemouth, that's probably one of the most one-sided games I've seen all season. Now, there's like caveats in terms of the injuries. They've had really bad injuries, right? But I'm looking at yesterday and I'm thinking, okay, you're going to a back 5. And he said after the game, I thought his interview was really good, actually. Thomas Frank, he was really transparent and clear. And he was like, it didn't matter what formation they would have played. They would have lost that game because they weren't they weren't able to match us, as you alluded to, in terms of physically in the duels. And if you don't win duels in the modern era, you can't play your football. It's as simple as that. But I felt with his team, I didn't see an idea to it because they had the back five. They had two, I would say, more defensive wing backs. They didn't play Porro for. If you're playing a back five, you didn't absolutely need someone like Porro, surely, And then the front line, I'm looking at him thinking, I know he's not someone who Tottenham fans like a lot, but Brennan Johnson is absolutely needed, surely, if you're going for a team that is going to sit a little bit more in and then look to hit on the counter, because Brennan Johnson is quick, very quick, So I felt that there was not really going to be any way for them to hurt us unless they were going to get a lot of situations where we concede fouls and then they're going to go long from Vicario. They're trying to target the back post with Danso. They had Danso. I had a feeling Danso was going to play this game because watching Spurs, he takes a mean long throw in. It's really good. And he had one opportunity in the entire first half before he got hooked. So I just didn't see the plan there. And also, I know with Ferguson Tottenham, but I think this is kind of related to us as well. I do think, and I'd urge you to watch back the goals against Brentford. I'm doing it again, 22-23. I know you love it there. The Brentford goals that we scored in 22-23, Gabriel Jesus at their ground with Granit Xhaka with the space that he's afforded in the half space. Ben White's cross to Declan Rice in the following season as well. It happens because Thomas Frank's system, in terms of how they defend, they prioritize the wide overloads out in the flanks. They do not want teams to be able to have time and space on the ball there, in which they will numerically overload that area so much, in which it leaves other spaces open, the far side, the middle. What was happening yesterday? And again, it all comes back from a Thomas Frank team that I didn't really understand, because when I look at Thomas Frank, one thing they do is they press man-to-man, they're aggressive from the front, and then they defend low. So the pressure wasn't really there from the front line, and that meant that the back line, centre-backs as well, in Van der Ven and Romero and even Danso, they weren't willing to commit and jump as high. That meant players like Marino, who is a different type of centre-forward to Victor Gyökeres. If Victor Gyökeres hangs on the last line, Marino will interpret that differently. He's someone who wants to drop a little bit more, and he wants to move in that space between the midfield and defensive line. So you know how we talked about back five systems? You said it as well, in terms of you want to get one of those midfield pivot players to jump. If you can get them to jump, boom, you're in the game, because then you've got that space to operate with. And when Marino was picking up that space, or when it was at times Saka or Timber, what was happening is Paulinho was coming across. So when Paulinho came across, and again, they're prioritising defending the wide spaces. Go and watch back those goals I've mentioned in previous seasons. That meant that if we're clever with our play and those short connections in our right-hand side, Eze and Calafiori are free on the far side. How many times that happened in the first half? It was incessant, because Bentancur would jump, then there was hesitancy from the backline players to jump out to prevent Marino from turning on the ball, and then that meant that we were able to access the far side, because then Paulinho, who is on the far side, comes across and vacates the far side, And these are things that are prevalent in Thomas Frank's teams when they're defending lower, but what's not prevalent is the fact that they didn't pressure us as much in our first line, which is something that's not a Thomas Frank team. That's something I completely do agree with. But yeah, I think there are some flaws there in which you want to defend the wide spaces, you want to prevent us there. That's fine, but we can then, if we access the far side, you're in trouble here. So,
yeah, and at least there was only one goal scored from that position, right? At least it wasn't 3 goals. Look, we should move on to why we're so good, but obviously they are related. But it's certainly a concern for Thomas Frank, and I was about to say I hope he fixes it. I don't. George, one of the reasons that Spurs were so bad is because they were scared of us, and they should be, because we are a fantastic football side who win our stuff, as Rohan was alluding to, who are physically aggressive, who are intelligent, who know when to press forward and when to sit back. I didn't think our press was actually at its best, but in terms of when to go forward, we were getting consistent joy down our right-hand side. Talk to us about what you saw as, outside of everyone felt it. The tempo was really nice in the first half. I think everyone felt we were winning our battles. I think everyone felt we were finding joy. But what specifically did you see that you thought, okay, that was the game plan?
There was this preference to overload the right-hand side and find space centrally. And it was to draw people in and exploit runners off the left, and we actually did a really brilliant job of going right to left in this game. And if you were to properly isolate most of our attacks, you could actually see the build quality. And a lot of times we would build and finish on the right. That's been Arsenal 22-23 for a while, like with our big pod. But there was absolutely an effort to build, but cut central in this game. And it happened countless times to find solutions in behind, for me, Bentancur. And I thought it was a very brave option because I did want to highlight something, guys. I mean, if I was looking at the back line and I was analyzing as a preview, I would look at Christian Romero as a jumpy center back that I'd like to get in behind of. And I thought it was actually quite brave, just in theory, to have Destiny Udogie, who I think is the better defensive wing back, and Van de Ven down that side, but choose to build there and still exploit in the center, as opposed to the other way around. And that to me was very interesting, because even though Jed Spence is a very powerful runner, I still would maintain the distance between a Jed Spence and a Romero has more opportunity for faults than a Van de Ven Udogie pairing. But we didn't care. And a lot of that had to do, in my opinion, with how Timber and Zubamendi switched positions midway through the first half, where I did feel that Declan Rice really slotted into the back three to begin with, which allowed us a level of out of possession control. But then he kind of removed himself and Zubamendi popped in, and it allowed Timber to find these spaces in the pockets to make some really brilliant underlapping runs. And it ended up meaning that Bentancur ball watched and followed Timber quite a bit, which is what opened the space for the pass inside countless times. And it was the bet that I think Paulinho would have been better covering the horizontal run and that entry pass than a Bentancur would. And that was, I think, Mikel's tactical understanding of why he chose to attack the right and cut inside, even though there are better defenders on Spurs' left in Udogie and Van de Ven. And he definitely understood that the biggest gap in Spurs' kind of, I'd say, makeup is the midfield. Like, I think for all their defensive structure, they're compact because they have more players back and the distances are tight. But their midfielders aren't diligent in tracking blindside runs. And that's something that I think Mikel picked up on, and why he chose to build right and cut in from the right, because that was definitely a factor. Now, I did want to just really briefly highlight in this tactical rant, the left did a brilliant job of running beyond to create space. And this whole idea of the underlap to create inside space centrally was done with both Calafiori as well as Timber. But Merino had a really important role in being a little bit more of a false nine and really dragging out to the right. He actually really became Havertz of last year when Odegaard was out. There was a real consistent idea that Merino didn't have the same box presence that he's had previously as a nine. And again, that came from this idea of trying to catch Bentancur, who's really poor on blindside runs. And I think that was a really targeted area from a Mikel standpoint, because he had a look really at the difference between Odegaard and Bentancur and the difference between a Paulinho and Kudos. And that was the difference to me, which was where we found space.
And consistently so. And I think something like 45% of our attacks came down the right-hand side in the first half, and I think it was similar in the second. Yeah, and that's not we might consider that as, well, typically Arsenal, but actually it hasn't been at times this season and recently without Bukayo Saka, etc. It also, to me, opens up a conversation, and I'm kind of curious about this idea at the minute of sort of what defines Arsenal. And I think it relates to this thing of what I see is that we can play any game, and we are so good at understanding what game is required when, at what point in the game, whether we need to run for a bit. Even, George, we spoke about a little bit about when the subs being late, possibly, but at that point in the game, you needed to settle it down. It was a little bit end to end. I would have liked to see them a little bit sooner, but it feels like we don't always get it right, but it feels like we have this sort of really clear understanding of what game is needed, which player is needed, which profile is needed, where to attack, who to attack, why to attack them. Declan Rice, I don't know if you saw him recently, he did an interview about Mikel, and he was saying, basically, don't judge him now, judge him at the end of his career, and it was a really lovely thing to say. But one of the things he said was, I go out there and I know exactly what I need to be doing. And that must be such a nice thing as a footballer. It's like, all I have to think about is executing. He's told me exactly what to do, and I'm going to do that. I want to come to you, Rohan. to you, what defines Arsenal? What defines me right now is this light turning off constantly. But what defines Arsenal? I think a couple of things for me. One, how much we are kind of kings of everything, but that's not a very defined thing. How good we are at sort of everything. To me, it's two things though, really. It's patterns. Sorry, not patterns. It's rotations in terms of the ability, the amount of players we have who seem so comfortable in so many different areas, whether it's Zubimendi or Timber or Saka, popping up in different spaces, Calafiori, the ability to look at a final third picture and say, okay, someone has to hold width, someone has to be on the inside, someone has to be dropping off the last line or whatever the instruction is, but it can be anyone, really. We can kind of decide who that is and how difficult it is for opponents. But also hidden value, and I spoke about this on the instant reaction. Players like Mikel Merino, players like Leandro Trossard, players, maybe Nkapie is a bit of a stretch in terms of hidden value, but I can't see anyone having a conversation about Nkapie being the next best defender in Europe. And I think we knew that he was a good player by Leverkusen, but coming in and putting that performance in yesterday, I didn't know he had that in him. Obviously, the club know more than us, but for me, there's a level to which Arsenal do hidden value very well. Those are my two, rotations and hidden value, and I'd be curious what you feel Arsenal are defined by, at least right now.
So tough, really. I think the best way to look at it to begin with is, I think you shared it, wasn't it? It was like Arteta was asked about his favourite goals this season, and he just picked Gabriel's against Newcastle, and he said about variation.
Yeah.
That's it, literally. I know it's hard to... It's variation. This is why, when we did TCP Live and it was like, what are my worries about Gabriel? My worries aren't really particularly the set pieces, because as much as the set pieces has allowed us to dictate the margins in many ways to break games open, I am confident in this team's ability to create chances. What I am worried about is this team's ability to defend set pieces, and also that partnership that he has with William Saliba. Those are things that I place more emphasis on in terms of where you will lose the value of a Gabriel. I think just saying Gabriel is this set piece monster kind of does him a disservice as well in terms of the value he offers to this team. And that's the beauty of yesterday's game, because the way I look at it, it's like we've played against back five teams like the last 4 weeks, before the international break. There's been different nuances in every single game. Like the same principles, the same ideas in terms of where certain players predominantly stand and the runs that we're making, etc. And you've alluded to in terms of you don't know who's standing where. That's all a part of the when X moves here, Y must respond, and so on and so on and so on. But the fact that there's subtle differences in every single game just shows how much variation there is with this team, because the manager is looking at small little details in which, we might be able to exploit that in this way. If not, we can do something else. So I've not really answered your question, but
no, you have variation.
Variation. But what I will say is, I think it's been something that was prevalent last season, the season before, and so on. The work we do off the ball is crazy. It's absolutely bonkers. And this season, actually, there's been a difference as well, in which, when you think of Arsenal and Sander Berg, actually, last season when we played Fulham, and he was asked about, you could be sat on the terraces and it feels like someone is using a remote control and is controlling the movement of every single player when they don't have the ball. This season we've been even more aggressive off the ball when we're defending. It's not this 4-4-2 block that you associate with. It's a team that is basically pressing each individual player to deny them from space and having time on the ball. But it all goes back to the work rate that they do as a collective, in which at times it'll be Saka pressing the centre-back. At times it'll be the right centre-mid, which what we usually see with Ødegaard pressing it. It depends on the situation. And then it all goes back to variation. We have different ways of playing and we can attack the opponent in different ways, which is why it is an absolute nightmare to play against us. And why teams like Sunderland, the reason why they got a point in that game was because they were able to match us physically in that first half, and they also capitalised on the law of randomness in the last stages of the game. That's the only way in which right now I'd see Arsenal can lose games of football, which is quite frightening. So,
pure luck.
Yeah,
George, same question to you, but with a bit of a layup. I think partly, because we don't lose games in any particular way other than pure luck, which is by definition not a pattern. We're fitter than you, we're faster than you, we're stronger than you, probably better looking than you as well. We have absolutely everything, which I think sometimes, and then you maybe, if you watch Arsenal enough, you go, okay, I think it's this, or as Rohan said, it's the variance or the hidden value, whatever it might be. But I think from an outside perspective, it's quite hard to define this Arsenal team because they're so good at so many things. And then, you end up saying, well, it's the set pieces just because we're so much further ahead. But we're also as good at set pieces as in other phases of play. It's just we're way further ahead, so it feels like more of a standout. But as in like I think the level of detail that we put into set pieces, so much further ahead. I imagine that's why it's hard to sort of define this team. But I'm curious on your take on that, and also on your take on what you think defines this Arsenal team.
I was going to say, like, it's the set pieces. I don't know what you're talking about. That's the only thing that we're able to offer.
Anything we're good at.
Look, there are times that I feel I can make it really complicated for you, but it is as simple for me as we run more than you. Whether it is a simple thing of running back to goal, you want to talk about transitions, the running power in this team in both short and long distances outmatches every single team. And when I look at times that Arsenal have struggled, is when teams have been able to run with you. Newcastle, even PSG, in that brief 20 minutes that they really put us under pressure. Why was that? They ran with us, they matched our press 1v1, and they actually were able to sustain that for those 20 minutes. But once they gassed out, what happened? Arsenal took control of the game. And we have built a squad that's capable and really has prioritized repeat sprintability, quickness over both 5 yards, but equally over 15 or 20. And, I think Gabriel's the perfect person to really talk about why. He was the first believer in the project, if you really want to talk about it, from back in Mikel in terms of what he wanted to define Arsenal as. Where, I think he is the poster boy for when you ask, what is Arsenal? He's the first one to really believe in the project. He was the first one that Mikel looked at and said, a raw technician that I can work with, but has a competency in duels that no one has. That's the superpower. He is just so physically dominant in his 1v1s, in the channels, and as a defender, being one of the best channel defenders in the world. And he saw that from his Lille days. And that's what defined his perfect Arsenal team. And so I know a lot of people don't want to talk about it because it can look really workmanlike and very un-Arsenal in general. But I truly feel the fact that no one can run with us is such a divergence from what we were. And in fact, what we lost, we were that. The Invincibles were a team that just physically out-auraed people. And we're returning to that. We are. And I think to culminate this, the reason Thomas Frank goes to a back five is because he's afraid he can't run with us. The reason he chooses Jed Spence instead of Pedro Porro is not because he worries about in attack. It's about in defense and in short distances. Can Jed Spence win the individual battle against a Trossard? And he worries about that to the point of doing something he hasn't done all season. and that fear is what we strike into the opposition constantly. So it's just as simply as outrunning people for me. And that's what defines Arsenal. If you look at every single recruitment, it's like we have an unparalleled ability to have these athletes that can stay man to man for 90 minutes.
And the squad, when Gabriel signed, I'm just looking at the squad here, I'm going through and it's your
crazy
mate,
when you look at it.
Your mate Rohan, but it's Callum Chambers and it's Pablo Mari and it's Serge Kolasinac and it's David Luiz and it's Danny Ceballos and it's Willian Lacazette. It's guys who don't have that running power. They're good players in other senses, but don't have that same running power. Sorry, Rohan, I cut you off.
No, just really quickly, it's like if you'd asked me, like we're kind of painting a picture in which Arsenal are invincible, right? You can beat Arsenal, right? Like. The Newcastle way of playing is still the best way to beat Arsenal. I maintain that. If we play Newcastle 10 times at St James's Park, I think we lose quite a few of them still. Because of variance. Because of variance.
Get him off the podcast.
Get him off. But this is why when we look at that game against Newcastle at St James's Park and we think we've cracked the code. It's like we were fantastic. If we play like that against Newcastle every single time and in turn that they respond in that same way in which they're not able to match us, sure, we'll beat them. But there's going to be days in which Newcastle will have this superiority, and then it'll go back to Arsenal haven't cracked the code against Newcastle. No, it's just a team that has the physical capacity to match us, and then it's about the unpredictability of football and the variance, and that is what can hurt us.
Do you guys think, though, like as a question, that Mikel deserves more credit for seeing this? Back when we recruited Gabriel, okay, and when you look at the mentality of where the league has gone with sprints and everything.
It's that quote that you had, George. That was in 2019. That
was where I was headed with the Gabriel thing, because I think we can very easily draw a pretty clear line of what Mikel saw coming, or what he was predicting coming, and other coaches didn't. Look, other coaches, some coaches did. Look, Pep, I think, has largely stayed ahead of things, but yeah. Also, did you see that? Oh no, I think it was made up. I thought Joe Linton. Did you see the thing about Eddie Howe and Joe Linton?
Yeah, I saw
that he was. I think it was made up. I've just realised that on the stream. How funny. I want to talk about some individuals.
Yeah.
And probably the way of doing that is through the goals, isn't it? We've spoken about how we created that space, but we did create that space, and it was a beautiful 4-goal win. A 3-goal margin of 4 goals in their net, mate. Mikel Merino passing that ball, lovely run. I watched a comp of him, like sort of his best moments in the last sort of 12 months.
You love a Mikel Merino.
George, somehow see myself in him. I don't know why. I just, like, if someone in the comments can name me, I'm going to say 15 better centre forwards in world football, I think you're doing very well. I have a feeling neither of you agree with that. But I don't think there are 15 better centre forwards. More effective. He's got 27 goals and assists in 2025.
Is that including Spain as well?
Yeah.
I was going to say that. Jeez.
But in terms of the pickup, I didn't realise that he was the one who passed the ball through to Martinelli for that Real Madrid goal. I also didn't realise he was the one who passed that ball through to Saka for his Real Madrid goal.
Yeah.
In terms of picking out runners, George, I'll come to you.
But this is Mikel Merino, right? Like, if I just read to you the output and then I watched him for 90 minutes...
Don't watch him.
Don't watch him. That's the point.
Don't watch him.
Don't watch him.
Watch the comps.
Yes. If I was to sofa score Mikel Merino, I would be like, who is this guy? He reads as a data anomaly, right? And I just think that he is a player. You did say the 15 comment. I don't know. Instinctually, I'm like, no. Okay? But if I actually sat there and like really tallied it, it's closer to 15 than I think people are giving you credit for. I'd probably say a little bit more to 20.
We probably can't do it now, but someone in the comments, name me 15 strikers better than Merino. I don't think you can.
Yeah, I don't think I'm at 15.
Be serious in the comments. Don't stop naming 15 strikers.
But I do get the point you're making, where it's again, he is a player that I have said is my biggest scouting mishap, if I'm being honest with you, because I thought he would be a very different type of player than what he's become. And I do think that he is becoming something else too in the last 2 years. Like, I don't think even at Sociedad he had this level of movement in the final third, and he was showing these things as well. Like, there has been an evolution to his game, and I'm trying to think of a player that has almost found his prime later, like this in history, that had a fairly average start to then explode in a very different role, right? Because when we talk about Mikel Merino, the 9, it's very different to Mikel Merino, the midfielder, in my opinion. And those 27 goal and assists genuinely come playing as a 9 and a false 9, but they come in a very different positional demand. Look, he deserves all the praise for doing it, and he's not everyone's ideal of that. And so he looks like an ugly duckling. Right. And so people are going to be very guttural when you start to praise, but then you look at the physical output and there's no denying that he is up there in the top 5% of strikers in world football as far as output goes. So at what point do you say it's consistent when it's over a season?
If we win the Premier League and Spain win the World Cup,
What are you saying, Ballon d'Or?
Where is he in the Ballon d'Or?
No, I don't know if I.
It's so ridiculous because also I watch him and bro, if I'm talking about like probably the least comfortable in various locations on the pitch, he's probably up
It's
there.
him. Yeah.
It's probably him. But if you win the Premier League, let's dream. Arsenal win the Premier League and Champions League, and Spain win the World Cup. Where is he in the Ballon d'Or? He's got to be top 3. He's got to be.
Now,
Ballon d'Or.
I like Big Marina, but if he wins the Ballon d'Or, then football needs to be deleted. Football needs to be deleted.
That's the most modern. That's the most modern conclusion, probably.
Yeah.
We can do.
Got to get the Ballon d'Or.
You have this in you, Alex. You have this sometimes where you try and get me into this, and sometimes I'm there with you. This time, oh God,
yeah, it's how I talk people in this peer pressure. I was that kid at school going, "Come on, have the WKD. Can't be that bad." Rohan, Leandro Trossard is another player in terms of this sort of this hidden value thing, and obviously the player who scored that first goal. Yeah. My take on why he's so good is, I sort of said this on the instant reaction, is he isn't the quickest, he's not the strongest, but he's so good off both feet. He's so sharp. He's so ahead of the game. And the thing I keep coming back to is you give him the ball, you get something back. He might lose it, but he'll delay his opponent. He'll probably give it back to you. He might knock it round the corner. He might, I don't know, put it in, run into the corner, maybe not progress the ball, but he'll keep hold of it. The sort of value added by Leandro Trossard in a football match is fantastic. And when you are this clutch, I read the stats of George on the instant reaction. He has more goals against the Big Six than Ryan Giggs.
What? Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
In 106 less games or something.
Ryan Giggs has been playing for about 100 years as well.
He was playing someone else as well. Carry on.
Yeah, won't go there, but yeah. Trossard. Do you know what's really underrated from Trossard?
I enjoyed that, Josh.
Yeah, I'm trying to compose myself as well. Thanks.
Come on.
Trossard, right? His back to goal play is nuts. He's the way he holds off players and he shields the ball and then he turns. Then he plays a simple pass or he tries a cute corridor pass in behind. It's ridiculous. I kind of now see, and I've been seeing it throughout the entire the season, and you notice it as well, but you don't pay loads of attention to it. But when Gabriel did an interview with Sky Sports, he was asked about like the strongest players at the club. He's like, Leandro Trossard is very strong, difficult to get the ball off. There are moments. Jed Spence is tough, very tough 1v1 operator.
Yeah,
you couldn't get the ball off him at times when he was holding it 1v1. And I think with Trossard, I think he's got 10 GA this season, so that's his output. For me, the biggest thing with Trossard is this is his best season in terms of performances, pure performances in terms of 0 to 90 minutes or whenever he comes off. His levels have been top. I think the only poor game he's had this season, in which I come out of it and think, that's a classic Trossard-esque performance, was against Fulham. And guess what? He scored in that game, scored the winner. That was like the Trossard I know this season. And it's the chemistry, like with Calafiori as well, in terms of Trossard comes deep, shows the ball, and then Calafiori's on his bike. You've got really good synergy there between two players. And the beauty of it and why it's strengthening is because they're having time with each other. That relationship is blossoming because Calafiori has started every single Premier League game this season so far. Trossard has pretty much started every single game as well. And it's flourishing. And I think like the left-hand side dynamics is the best it has been so far since that said season. So... Yeah.
I don't want to disrupt that relationship right now. Calafiori and Trossard is a really, really good pairing. It feels like it blends the ridiculous physical attributes of Calafiori with the technical quality of a Trossard. They can, again, similarly to that right hand side, they can both receive in all different areas. They can create different angles with their passing. They can combine with each other. They can rotate in and out. They just, they completely facilitate our football. And I think when I look at what Arsenal's left winger should be, this is probably why I'm still in love with Semenyo. I don't think it's happening, but I'm still in love with him. But Kenan Yildiz is going up and up and up my list because of what Trossard is doing. Because I'm thinking, how do you get more out of that? How do you replicate this? How do you replicate these dynamics? Obviously, things change, and I'm sure the moment Lewis Skelly comes in, I'll be wanting something else. But I am looking at that and thinking it's an interesting one. But look, we could sit here and praise everyone else. We got to do it. Ebereze's game by numbers versus Spurs: 100% dribbles completed, first. 100% tackles won, first. 6 shots, first. 3 dribbles completed, first. 3 goals scored, first. 1 big chance created, first. And 1 hat-trick, first. He is the first... That's not true, Statman Dave. First ever Arsenal player to score a hat-trick in the North London derby. Simply untrue. In the Premier League, that is true, but the first Arsenal player to score a hat-trick since... I think it was Alan Drake in 1978, I believe is his name.
Trivia.
Sure, yeah. I'm sometimes good at it. So, yeah.
You're actually amazing, by the way. Side note, you're amazing at trivia. It is one bad public appearance. Every time we've done an Arsenal trivia, you win. It's not that you're not good at trivia.
Thanks, George. I appreciate that.
It's true.
Thank you. And for that, I'll come to you, George, for backing me up. Talk to me about Eze, because that was... There are games that will go, Arshavin's 4 against Liverpool, I'm sure you could name a million for different players, but I'm just going to let you speak about Eze because he was just ridiculous.
I said it really simply. I had a comp, and one of my comments on X was he's announced himself to the squad. And I had this... kind of mindset on the IR as well, where I think that for as much as Eze, and it's a dream, and it's a script writer's dream, what has happened, right? He has to believe that he's one of the best players in the Arsenal squad, and that Arsenal bought you for a reason. And this was a performance from 0 to 90 that was complete because he combined all of those things that you cited with a incredible understanding out of possession about where to be as a second trigger and following up with Mikel Merino. And it was a landmark performance, not just output. That seems to be something that we're describing quite a bit, whether it's Trossard or whatnot. But from an Eze perspective, he's been able to kind of, with this performance, slate and have a game where he took it by the scruff of the neck and he dictated for himself and he won us this game. I think there was a lot of teamwork involved in how we beat Spurs, but genuinely, when you've got somebody that's scoring a hat trick like that and doing 100% of dribbles, I think everything points to, we know this is in you, but you got to do it more. And you've got to stop almost being thankful that Arsenal bought you and saying you bought me for a reason. And that cockiness is displayed in how much you're able to take the game by the scruff of the neck. And I just hope this is the start and the takeoff point. Because for as much as it's been a beautiful story that it had to be Eze that scored, it had to be Eze making an impact in this game, I start to think to myself, can the media stop asking him how much his family are here? And can he start saying, I am the one of, or if not the best player in this squad? Respect me. And when he makes that individual journey transition, we see a different Eze globally. And I think this is a performance that shows it. It was his first I'm him, if you want to call it, performance in an Arsenal shirt. And he has this more, mate. Like, he does this consistently, which he has all the talent to do. And I'm telling you, that's post-February Eze in a nutshell. We got that now. But that's how he gets to the next step.
We've said this before about Saka, and you made a really, really good point in this reaction about Saka, about how much he's passing to Eze and how much he wants to find Eze.
Yeah.
And it does feel like we finally, Rohan, found someone who is willing to take that burden off him. And because you're bang on, George. Vinny Jr., Mbappe, Salah are not asked about basically how great is it that you're here after their games. And by the way, that will be happening at the moment because it's November. He's just signed. That's all, that is the story right now. Yeah. But I think the step forward now is not, oh, how great that you're here. Didn't you get released by Millwall? How crazy. It's, oh, you're winning games and winning the Premier League and the Champions League for Arsenal. And Rowan, I want to ask you firstly about that. But secondly, I stuttered as I was asking George that question because I was trying to remember another individual performance after Arshavin. And I'm thinking there's individual goals. So Henry against Liverpool, against Spurs. I'm thinking of maybe the Bergkamp goal against Newcastle, but individual performances like that in such an important season, potentially to win Premier, hat tricks, that Arshavin game, that Eze game. There's not loads. Am I missing loads? from a goal scoring perspective. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, not with a hat trick, mate. I mean,
RVP was it 2011 against? Was it? I can't remember who it was.
Well, RVP scored. I remember RVP had like really good games at Anfield, so he'd scored a double at Anfield, and he was insane. If you can go back to like Stamford Bridge when we beat Chelsea 5-3, and RVP scored a hat trick. That's you could look at that one, right? Because so when we beaten Chelsea, we went through an entire like 7-8 years in which we couldn't buy a win at Chelsea, and then fast forward, Mikel comes in, and that changes. But we're talking about very few individual performances. Maybe Kanu as well. You go back, Kanu against Chelsea as well, hat trick. But this was special because it's his first ever North London derby, and the whole journey behind it. What compounds it even more is the fact that he was very close to signing for Spurs. I think that's pretty clear as day now, in which if Arsenal didn't pounce, he would be at Spurs. Because a footballer's career is very short. And for someone like Eze now, he's prime age, so he's thinking to himself, I've got to get a move now, really, So that's a watershed moment, really, in itself. And I think with the goals, I mean, listen, we've been saying it time and time again. Law of large numbers, right? In previous games, Eze has had constantly shots in the same positions. Yes, the space was a little bit more against Spurs, but it's the same situation. At St. James's Park, he could have easily scored a hat-trick in that game, But what was happening before is Eze was simply underperforming in that regard, right? Because a player of his ball-striking prowess should be scoring more from these situations. Now, I couldn't have foreseen him score a hat-trick. And I find it crazy. I was talking to someone today, and he was like to me, oh, I'm gutted he didn't get his fourth. I was telling him, are you not hearing yourself, though? I'm gutted he didn't get his fourth of the game, right? It's absolute madness. And do you know what it is? It's like, that's an unstoppable ability Eze has there. When he's in that situation, he's going to keep scoring those types of finishes. In the same way as when Kevin De Bruyne receives the ball in the right half space and he whips it across the face of goal to the back post, it's unstoppable. It's the same way as with Trent when he crosses in that area. It's the same way with Ian Robben when he cuts in. It's the same way when Messi receives the ball in the right half space and he's got time. These are things in which, like, the average person in these areas are not really going to maximise it. But when you've got special players, and Mikel was talking about his ball striking, where bouncing ball, left foot, right foot, he knows what to do. It's a joy, and the fact that it came against Tottenham just makes it feel even more special. But the goals were coming. We all could see it. He's in the 96th percentile for shots in the Premier League this season. He's got only, I think, Mateta and one other player. I think James Benja tweeted about it. Has had more shots than Eze this season. Yeah,
and I was trying to just do some numbers there, but it was getting too complicated, so I stopped. But George, I mean, this isn't. I'm sensing there's going to be a conversation in the next couple of weeks about Martin Odegaard, and I'm dreading it a little bit, to be honest, because I don't want it to be a conversation because he's an absolutely fantastic football player. But right now, Eze's in my team. Martin Odegaard has qualities over Eze, absolutely, in terms of, I think, certainly in the middle phase and certain things you want to do to an opposition and from an out of possession perspective, etc. But Eze just takes more shots. I mean, it's that simple, George. And he has scored 3 goals, and sometimes you have to weigh up. You talk about sort of benefits and drawbacks of players, and you say, well, he helps us in this phase, whatever. Yeah, but that guy scored a hat trick in a North London derby. They're not equivalent. Yes, they have different qualities, but one thing is better. Do you know what I mean? Like, this might be more fun and tactical, and actually, I'm pointing out that actually he helps us progress. So, scored a hat trick in the North London derby. Like, it's that simple.
And the part of the problem is, who's our identity deep? It's Zubimendi, and if you start to add that conundrum, how I've liked to push. And what Zubimendi could be higher up himself and what he's finding himself doing as well in the final third. Look, at the end of the day, having people that can impact the game centrally, consistently, is the gold dust of world football. And I've been no shame in always peddling a Yildiz or whoever. Well, how do you maximize the central? Why do I want that? It's because it's the hardest thing to do in world football. And so when you have players like that can do it, you ask yourself the question. And it's not that Martin Odegaard can't either. And I think that's a really important description. When you're looking at a finisher of actions as opposed to somebody facilitating those actions. And the conversation is that one group of fans will expect Martin Odegaard to finish the actions and then ignore the facilitation. And then another group of fans will say, Eze needs to do more to facilitate, and we know he can finish. And if we smush the two, we get a supreme total footballer. But the problem is there's a finite number of touches and influence and voices in a team. And ultimately, I think, and I do believe that teams go through evolution. We're not at a period where that conversation becomes nervy. But in the Skriniar quote, I'm nervous because I think it's coming up. What's that guy? Who's that guy? Tom Skinner. That guy. He does. He
Styles give it shaky.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm getting shaky because I think this team is finding a new voice, ultimately. And you have to say that Eze asked that question for the fee. You know, he came in, guys, as a £60 million signing. Yeah. Like, regardless, like, that's not a cheap signing, right? And if he's going to grow, and by the way, become a lot more central, because I did want to highlight this, he did it in a very central way. This wasn't coming off the left. There's been this discourse lately that his impact will go up a level coming off the left. And what he's doing now is like icing on the cake because it's not a familiar position. And to me, I've always pushed back on it. Since the summer, I said, watch what he could be in the center. There is this impact. Now, how many people can we fit in the center and to the right? That becomes a question, right? When you start to look at your talent, your Dowman, your Saka, your Eze now, you look at Ethan Waneri, it's just a natural question that's going to happen, I think, fundamentally, because we've got a lot of talent that likes to operate in that zone. So I don't think it's something to critique, especially off a performance like this, but it definitely is worth saying he scored a hat trick in a North London derby. Like, we're not talking insignificant amount of pressure, and we're not talking insignificant amount of ability here. Like, that's top echelon stuff. And this idea about attacking midfielders getting closer to their strikers is something that I see continuing in the Premier League long term. I've always felt that striking partnerships are coming back in vogue. I really think that we're going to start to see those things a lot more. So you ask yourself very different questions, right? And that has to come into it.
There's so much more on the game that we could talk through. There was a goal for some guy at some point. Can't remember who. There was another goal in the game, but I don't seem to recall it.
He's just so irritating, isn't he?
What a horrible man.
So annoying. What is wrong with that guy when he's playing?
Horrible little man.
Did you guys? Maybe this is worth talking. Like, where do you guys stand on the Raya of it all? I really get a guttural reaction to it, so I don't want to say my opinion, but it is a discourse. So I'm just doing my job there. Yes. What do you guys think about that discourse?
I don't want to have it right now because of the pod we're on, but you can't get lobbed 3 times in 8 months. Like, you can't. Like, I'm sorry, I don't care if it's Zubamendi's fault or it's whoever. You can't get lobbed 3 times in 8 months. So that's something to look at. And but also David Raya has been absolutely brilliant, and like, you know, it was a brilliant day, and I don't want to ruin it by that conversation personally. You're right to bring it up, but I just Ryan, quickly.
I agree to disagree with your statement there.
Who, me?
Yeah, I don't think Raya is at all at fault. Yeah,
you can't. Okay, we'll have that. Well, TCB live.
TCB live. Yeah.
Well, I have brought this up at the hour mark. I knew.
George knew the retention rate at this point. It's like when I bring up my Jokeres critique at the end of pods, because I'm like, I'm finally safe. Right. I mean, finally, to say before we move to the questions, I'm still looking at an injury list of Kai Havertz, Gabriel Jesus, Martin Odegaard, Victor Jokeres, and Gabriel. And we haven't even mentioned it up till now, an hour of the pod. A fantastic day. A day that I think come the end of the season, when we are holding one of the big ones aloft, we will remember. I think this, for me, the Newcastle game, the Spurs game, and I hope there's at least 3, 4, 5 more to come of these types of games.
All it is injuries. If injuries do not dictate...
But mate...
there's nothing.
But
Yeah, but
Rohan,
I'm talking about Christ,
captain,
Alex. Yeah, I'm
our
talking about Christ.
captain was out. Our 2 9s were out. We're still fine.
Yeah, but I'm saying like you lose like a Declan Rice for the entire season. God forbid, like those sorts of injuries. That's where I start to get shaky. But until that happens, there's nobody is going to beat us to this title.
I promise this isn't an hour debate, and I'm not doing this again. But one thing that I do think we don't do as fans is enjoy these moments enough. And I wanted to end on that, we always look at the what if, and I understand the pressure. But we really need to enjoy this. Like, I think a 4-1 in a North London derby in 5 years is something we talk about personally. Eze scoring a hat trick, like the same way that Declan Rice winning how he did against Madrid. Like, I do think this is a performance that will be talked about, especially if you talk about it in the context of us winning the league this year. Like, I think the North London derby and Eze's role in it will be a cult story that gets talked about quite a bit. And I don't know if we as fans enjoy it enough, and just letting ourselves go sometimes. I'm very tactical as a person. Sometimes I don't lean into this, but I really have felt this lately, that we're not enjoying this team enough. We keep caveating certain things, and there's no reason to caveat that we literally made Spurs cower like little girls. We made a manager who's a very good manager do something he's never done all season. We had that impact. And there's a quote that I always remember when Thierry Henry would say that we beat teams in the tunnel. Guys, we literally have psychologically destroyed a very good manager. And it's leaking. Did you guys see the Bayern quote that's going around, that the Bayern team are afraid and looking at Arsenal as a worrisome opponent that they're afraid of and going to face? And I'm like, damn right, it's about time that we have had that psychological impact, where I felt like for a long time, we as fans and optimistic fans have supported Mikel. But it has been unpopular through the journey. Like, let's have it right, And you've had to have faith. We have crossed the point where it's like, oh, you've now competed. It's like Arsenal walk into a room and everyone brings their girlfriend a little bit closer. You know what I mean? Like, there's a bit of that of, oh, damn, look at that.
What happens when Rohan walks in a room.
Presence. Exactly. Exactly.
And so, girlfriend a bit tighter.
Well, there we go. And I think there's a bit of that. We should enjoy it a bit more than we do.
If people know Game of Thrones, I saw a good little edit on TikTok earlier of the moment where if you know the reference, I'll just say that I won't say the characters in case it spoils it for everyone. But when someone pushes someone out of a window in the first episode, and then he sees him in like season 6. If you know that reference,
I know the exact reference.
And it's the like buy into Arsenal in 2016-17, and now it's so good. It's so
watched a single Game of Thrones episode, so yeah.
Yeah, I could tell. Okay. Right. Thank you all for joining us on the Cannon Podcast. We're about to answer all of your questions, but Rohan.
Yes.
If they want priority access to questions, where should they go?
He sighs every time.
Telling you guys.
The Discord. Yeah, right. Okay. We're we're going to go to this one from Sky before Rohan launches the monologue. Very simple question, which might get covered, but would you rather us fully rotate the squad for Munich and risk dropping points losing in midweek if it means we have everyone fit and healthy for Chelsea at the weekend, or would you rather us go all out against Munich and risk us getting injuries or being burned out for the game against Chelsea? Basically, Rohan, what is your Bayern Munich lineup, please?
Just like that, yeah? Straight on the spot. Because I want to go full strength.
You are on an Arsenal podcast. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask you your lineup for the next game. It's probably the most predictable question of a podcast ever.
Hopefully you two join me as well.
This is his instant reaction thing. He doesn't want to get caught out in any sense.
That's not true. That's not true. No. Right, okay. Raya, Timber, Saliba, Hincapié, Miles. I'd go Miles. Yeah. Zubimendi, Rice, Eze, Martinelli on the left. I don't think Gyökeres will be ready, so Marino and then Saka.
Is that the same team barring Miles?
And Trossard.
And Martinelli.
Yeah.
Oh, and Trossard, okay.
Yeah. But I'd like to bring Gyökeres in if he was available.
Yeah, I think Miles and Martinelli makes more sense as a pairing than like a Calafiori and Martinelli.
I don't want to throw this game away. I don't
No.
agree with this. This is against Bayern Munich, for God's sake, and it's the two best teams right now in Europe.
Yeah.
Just throw it away at the Emirates. Come on.
Isn't it nice that we are facing second in the Champions League and second in the Premier League? I'm so confident, lads. I'm so confident, and I'm so looking forward to it. Like, going back to what you were saying just now, George, like, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. I don't feel that same, like, oh, jeopardy. Like, I am going to be nervous before the games, but...
Yeah. But the Bayern Munich game is beautiful, right? Because we're in a great position anyway, right? It's like, it is what it is. It's a game where it is what it is. If we lose, so be it. If we win, beautiful. If we draw, we keep it moving. It's a great opportunity to test yourself against another giant this season in a game that has really no jeopardy, in my opinion, because of the position that we hold in the table, and we'll be fine. Like, we'll finish in the top 8 with ease.
I definitely think it's a good question, though, because I did make a point when Gabriel got injured that I do have a very different center back pairing for different types of opponents. And I did say that my Hincapié and Calafiori pairing was something I preferred for Spurs, but I do prefer Mascara and Saliba against a Bayern Munich type of opponent.
Do you think Mikel will do that, though? Do you think...
No. Let's be very clear. He will not do what George says, because he never does, and he is about keeping the same team in terms of consistency. But I'm telling you what I would prefer personally as far as opponents go. And I would like to choose a more running team. So I actually agree, Rohan, with your Miles and your Martinelli instinct, but I'd throw in Mascara with Saliba with that team. And it's because it's a greater physical test, in which I do think that Bayern will have an ability to run with you and run backwards. So I'm picking a more physical team at the expense of the in-possession stuff, because I do think Spurs did not show any endeavor, but Bayern do have Elise down that right-hand side that can run, and they have a way to facilitate him. And I think that left-hand side with Calafiori and Trossard were able to do a lot for Spurs that they wouldn't have done with a single strong runner down that side. That's what I would like.
I would be tempted even possibly to put Rice 6, Marino left 8.
What, that was Bayern?
Especially if Zubamendi's, he's played a lot of minutes, mate.
Oh, okay, but so you wouldn't go Norgard?
Big running game. No. I'd put Rice deeper, Marino as the left 8 to step in up front almost as, and then probably put Trossard false 9, because I think that could be really interesting. But it depends on Zubamendi's fitness.
But what you'd really do is field an 11 of Mikel Marinos.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, he is my father.
He's the Ballon d'Or. He's the next
on that, we did another question on our Discord from Nick, who says, "Hello, honey bun. Does Hincapié have a greater ceiling than Gabriel? His on the ball quality, ball playing, and tempo brought me more comfort, strangely, than Gabriel has, and I felt it helped us unlock the game yesterday."
So he said honey bun, right?
He did tag George. You, to be fair. He was talking to you.
Me?
You said main pod record in 2 hours. You said cuties as well. Get your questions in, and he said hello, honey bun. He was matching your energy. He was matching your energy, mate.
That's for George. Well, yeah, go on, George.
I love Nick too. I would say it's listen, I don't want to be rude, but I think there's a level of technical aesthetic bias that, because he approaches his technique brilliantly, Hincapié. And I think that there's a level on the ball that certainly is much higher than Gabriel will reach. But I don't think that there's the same level of defending channels and composure that Gabriel has. Gabriel had a different level of dominance in duels, especially outside the box, but Hincapié is a brilliant box defender. And Hincapié is so young. So there's a question to ask for sure. But I just think you're comparing a player that's already arrived to a player that's still arriving, and it's very difficult. And I don't know if Hincapié will ever have the same potency that Gabriel will have as far as output goes. Like, we're talking about one of the most potent center backs, I'm going to go big, in history. Like, I think when you look at Gabriel's career, can you name many center backs that have guaranteed more output than Gabriel? Maybe Sergio Ramos, maybe Van Dijk, Terry, but even then, I don't know if it's if it's as potent as Gabriel. So that's what I would say. I think that on the ball, yes, but as a player, no. I think that Gabriel will go down as a better center back overall, but Hincapié will show you more on the ball. And it's why he's more of a fullback center back than he is a true center back for me.
Question from Dinny. Could we talk about Saka's influence on the team in our recent games? I feel like we've been led to believe that he's been subpar due to the lack of GA, but I think he generates so much football. He's doing things that don't appear on the stat sheet. Rohan?
You got Dinny knows his stuff. Dinny's
Stop
spitting.
glazing everyone in the Discord.
Dinny's spitting, mate. Absolutely spitting. Saka was so good yesterday. So good. It's actually scandalous that he didn't walk away with something, really.
Yeah.
You know, he had a doggy on toast. He had a doggy on toast 2 seasons ago as well. He's fantastic. Like, and the numbers will come. It's the same with Eze. Like, there was worries about Eze's productivity going into this game, thinking, you know, he's had 8 games, he scored 1 goal. Are we really doing enough to get the best out of him in this position? And then he scores 3 goals, and then the discourse completely changes. All it will take is a couple of games from Saka, and things change.
It does make me laugh how quickly things shift.
Crazy.
There was an Athletic podcast earlier on that was basically, what was the title of it? Has Arsenal's recruitment set them apart? What? You're asking that now? Like seriously? It's literally been good for
When was it
4
bad?
years.
When was
5
it bad?
seasons?
Whatever. It's never been bad. It's never been bad, really.
Yeah.
We've made decisions. I'm like,
Yeah,
recruiting a forward in 2024 bingo.
Yeah,
but it's generally the recruitment success as a whole has been greater than 60% consistently.
the signings and like the windows in which you look at like individual players people look at are like, for example, Sambi Lokonga, Nuno Tavares. Look at where Arsenal finishing at that time.
Yeah.
Who do you think we're going to sign? Like, that's part and parcel where we are. And then you look at like Zinchenko and Jesus because of what's transpired with Jesus, and then Zinchenko obviously going away now at Forest and stuff, and how that's kind of fast tracked really. Like Zinchenko changed Arsenal from an evolution standpoint in terms of what we could do systematically, and then was really quickly like displaced as well. But what Zinchenko did in that moment was so crucial, you know.
Yeah.
So like even these like players in which you're thinking about, you know, wasn't good signing there. Even like Tomiyasu, when people look at Tomiyasu as a flop, how can I say Tomiyasu is a flop when he cost 16 million? He cost 16 million, and look at the performances that he did deliver.
Yeah.
Our recruitment has been elite.
For a long time.
Genuinely. So
For a long time. And yeah, even the ones that we've questioned have often come good.
Most open play goals in November to
and, like,
slight
like,
the
plays like-
set piece. It's the narratives. You tell me this all the time. Don't get upset at the media.
plays like
And
Pablo Mari
it
as
will
well.
change.
Pablo Mari, you know, he wasn't good, right? He cost like 2p.
Yeah.
Just, come on.
And well, on that, Rob Holding only cost 3 million.
Oh God.
Final question.
3 million
Final
then
question.
probably was about $1 billion.
Final question from Cole says, what are your hottest takes that you guys have shelved in the back of your minds / what will be your hottest takes if we win the league, Champions League, or both? George, do you want to share what we spoke about on the instant reaction?
I kind of said it on the instant reaction. Yeah. No, I'll say it. I'll proudly say it. I'll go out there. I really have a feeling we do the double. And by the double, I don't mean another trophy. I mean the Champions League and the Prem.
This season?
Yes.
Good Lord.
And I think if that was to happen, where does that put Mikel Arteta in terms of the global footballing fraternity? And what it does for Arsenal. Like we were just
Sir Alex, mate.
only Pep and Sir Alex that I think have done
Give
it.
me one for now.
Calma.
I'll just take one for now.
And I do. Sorry to complete that prediction so that I get completely roasted. I think that the title ends early, and I think the reason we're able to do the Champions League is because we end this title quite early. We do win it at a canter, and I think it gives us the ability to focus on the Champions League in those difficult months.
Everybody is on their knees. And I mean on their knees.
So that's a hot take.
For Chelsea next week. Do you know? Because it was these two games, right? It was Spurs and Chelsea. Yep. Strike one. Yeah, it's gone. Now Chelsea, everybody's looking at thinking, come on now. Fair. Last 2 seasons, not
you
won
make it 9. If you make it 9 and you make it 11, genuinely, I'm actually asking this. How long until we say that has been one of the easier title wins? When do you have to say it? Because we've done this before the Christmas period, and Chelsea are historically very poor in the Christmas period. So you're basically looking at Man City and what they can do. What's the distance needed between second that you need to start saying things are looking more at a canter territory?
I mean, like, for example, the COVID season, Liverpool ran away with that, that title but Man City had really bad injuries.
And wasn't it by 11 points? Like, that was one of the bigger gaps that I saw.
Yeah, and Liverpool in their Liverpool that season, 26 games in, they won 25.
Yeah.
Which was crazy. Last season will go down as one, when we're talking about, like, maybe not points-wise, but in terms of, like, when the title was gone, that wasn't a title race, really, last season, really. Yeah. There's a few Ferguson years as well in which it was, but this would be up there. I think if injuries do not dictate, we can wrap this up a lot earlier than what you would expect.
Give us a hot take, you sit fencer. Give us a hot take.
Marino Ballon d'Or.
Mikel Marino.
Ballon d'Or.
I don't know my hot take. No, my hot take is
we win the league by 10 or more points.
How many trophies do you think we win this season?
2.
Which ones?
Premier League and Carabao Cup.
Premier League and FA Cup. That's the proper domestic double. That.
But we all think. Wait. So am I like getting this right? We all think we win 2 trophies this year, though.
I think so.
Not gonna lie, I thought we were gonna win 1, but when you both said 2, I thought I can't just say 1 now. I can't just.
You look negative and toxic.
Yeah, negative and toxic.
Yeah,
not proper.
Get him out of our fan base. Look, we'll finish there. Thank you all for joining us on the main podcast, on the Cannon Podcast. You are all beautiful. If you got this far, you're in a special club of retention, my friend. We will be back for instant reaction to the Bayern game. I will not be there. Apologies, but George and Ford are there. We'll have a rewatch some point this week, I presume.
I believe tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Today. So released on. Yeah, released tomorrow.
When are you? Have you recorded it?
No. So we're recording.
He's recording it tomorrow,
Monday.
But for Wednesday.
But this is for Tuesday listeners, isn't it? So I'm recording today, guys. If you're listening on Tuesday,
I'm confused. Can you talk to me like it's Monday?
Yeah, I'm recording on Tuesday.
You're recording a Spurs rewatch.
Spurs rewatch, yeah.
Okay. Do I have to edit that because MJ's away?
God knows.
Okay,
I'll do it.
All right. Okay.
I'll do it.
Please don't. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you so much for watching. You are legends. Enjoy the beautiful times, the beautiful Arsenal, and let's go smash. Let's go smash Bayern Munich. Thank you, George.
Thank you, good sir.
Thank you, Rohan.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for keeping it Arsenal.
Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. This was one kind of queue the ladies thoroughly enjoyed. Electrifying. Inspiration.